Welcome, everyone. Call tonight's regular meeting of council to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of May 9th, 2022 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Ady, second by Councillor Renhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation the minutes of the special council meeting of April 25th, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Skelton Morvan, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of April 25th, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Skelton Morvan. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3C, recommendation that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of April 25th, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Renhawa, second by Councillor Ady. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3D, recommendation that the minutes of the special meeting of May 2nd, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Skelton Morvan. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3E, recommendation the minutes of the special regular meeting of May 2nd, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first we have a report from planning regarding the development activity report. Is this a actual presentation or just for our information? Okay. Item 4B, report from the Chief Financial Officer, Deputy City Manager, regarding a service provider agreement between the City of Prince Rupert and Can Island Trail Enhancement and Recreation Society. Are you speaking to this?
Sure. So the Can Island Trail Enhancement and Recreation Society licenses the Rushbrook Trail from the city for the purposes of making identified improvements, maintenance, care, and control of the trail. The society pays for insurance over the trail and until the pandemic hit was able to fundraise for those purposes. The impacts to fundraising efforts, as well as escalation of premiums due to a tightening in the insurance underwriters market, has resulted in constraints the society was not anticipating. Given that the city and the society have an agreement in place and the society is required to make the trail available to the public, the city can add the society to its insurance as an associate member. The society will pay the increase in premium, meaning there is no impact to the city. The city can add the society if council approves the recommendation.
Okay, it's a recommendation that council approve the service provider agreement between the City of Prince Rupert and Can Island Trail Enhancement and Recreation Society for the purpose of liability insurance coverage by the Municipal Insurance Association. Moved by Councillor Renhawa, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have a report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the alternative approval process for the police detachment loan authorization number 3483/2022.
Thank you. The city's police detachment loan authorization bylaw has received 3 readings and now has approval from the Inspector of Municipalities. The next step in the process for obtaining loan funding is to receive elector assent through the alternative approval process. Attached to the report in front of you is the notice of the alternative approval process, which will be advertised in the Northern View, the elector response form, and the determination of the number of eligible electors in Prince Rupert. The council is asked to pass the resolution that approves all of these items, as well as set the deadline for receipt of the elector response form as being June 27th at 4:30 p.m. Electors are asked to sign the elector response form should they disagree with council borrowing funds for the RCMP detachment project. The loan is not anticipated to increase property taxes in the future unless the entire loan is required. If this is the case, at current interest rates, the estimated tax increase would be 2%. Information on the project is located on the city's website under City Hall, City Financials.
Okay, moving the recommendation, Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Scott Morvan. Discussion. Councillor Moore.
I just start by saying I appreciate the level of detail in calculating the 10% number of electors. That was a very thorough report, and it would surprise me if that many people would register their opposition, because I think most people understand the position that the city is in on this one. With that said, though, I recognize this is very early days, and I don't obviously need a response right now, but it's something I'm hoping staff can report back on. There was an all-party committee recommendation of the provincial government that the province should consider transitioning the RCMP to a provincial police force. And I recognize that's a very long-term, legally complex, logistically challenging endeavor, but I'd like to get a sense on what the potential implications of that change could mean for this project.
I don't quite have an answer to that, aside from the fact that, yes, you're probably right, Councillor, that it is a very, very long process if that were to be the transition. However, in the meantime, we are obligated to construct an RCMP detachment, and we have been behind for about 10 to 12 years, I believe, in this endeavor. I could only surmise that if there was a changeover in who the contractor would be, if it was a provincial police force, that the province would actually look to all of the municipally owned buildings for communities that are over the age of, over a population of 5,000, and they would probably, we would probably transfer them over at probably either market value or some kind of negotiated amount.
Did you have a follow-up?
No, I appreciate that response. I think the only thing I would add is I think there's been kind of a common concern, I think, that, or at least that I've heard articulated back to me, that for a loan of this amount, a lot of people are saying, well, couldn't we spend these millions on, parks or roads or whatever type of initiative that someone might see as a priority. I think it's important that we acknowledge that is a frustration. I think all of us, if we could set different priorities for this amount of money, we would like to, but we do need to acknowledge that there is a legal obligation here. And as Ms. Bombin said, a decade plus in the making. So ultimately, beyond the loss of local control, if the RCMP were to construct their own facility, any cost overruns would be borne by the taxpayer anyways. So that is the classic definition of being stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I'm comfortable with the recommendation as it's written.
Councillor Cunningham.
Councillor Moreau and Chief Financial Officer Corinne basically answered the question. I was going to say, it doesn't matter what we do, but they're just going to go ahead and do it anyway, and we have no control. This way we have control about what we're spending, and I assumed if we go to a provincial police force, and exactly what Mrs. Bauman said will come to rest, and maybe we'll make some money selling the building to the province, which would be nice.
Other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have a report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the audited statements. Did you have anything to present?
Just a few words. How about that? So we have provided a report to Council identifying the financial highlights in the attached 2021 audited financial statements, which outlines some of the differences compared to the prior year as well as to budget. Our auditors have indicated they plan on appending an unqualified audit opinion to these statements after Council accepts them. An unqualified audit opinion is a clean opinion. Overall, the city's financial position as presented by these statements is similar to 2020 thanks to the COVID Smart Restart funds and staff's efforts to deliver services within budget. We have been fortunate to have received support from both senior levels of government, and we are utilizing those grants to continue to revitalize city infrastructure. New to this year's statements is the additional debenture debt taken on to advance the Woodworth Dam replacement project and the new landfill cell. However, there are many replacement and renewal needs, causing our surpluses and reserve accounts to be accessed. Prince Rupert Legacy and City West have contributed towards the overall financial position of the city in a positive way, and we continue to utilize those municipal enterprises to contribute to our infrastructure needs. These audited statements are a snapshot of the city's financial position at the year ended December 31st and are backward facing. They do not tell the full story of the city's capital replacement needs, given there are still many left on the list. The 5-year financial plan is the forward-facing document that the statements measure against. These statements reflect that the city is following through on the critical projects identified in the plan and delivering services at the levels approved. As we advance through the list, we will continue to advocate for alternative sources of revenue and grants with which to advance Council's strategic priorities. Council is asked to approve the 2021 audited financial statements as presented.
Recommendation that council accepts the 2021 audited financial statements as presented. Moved by Councillor 80, second by Councillor Renhawa. Discussion. Okay, great work to staff. Comments or?
No.
Okay.
No, we were waiting for the all in favor.
Oh, I see.
We went together with the same track.
Got it. Okay. All is in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, next we have a report from our corporate administrator regarding a letter of support for Northern BC Tourism. The recommendation that council directs staff to provide a letter of support to Northern BC Tourism in their application to the Northern Healthy Communities Fund to support the reestablishment and evolution of the Tourism Resiliency Program. Moved by Councillor 80, second by Councillor Renhawa. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, and moving on to bylaws. Council recommendation that council give fourth and final reading to the road closure bylaw number 3488/2022. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Scott Morvan. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have a report from planning regarding the City of Prince Rupert zoning amendment bylaw number 3492/2022. Welcome.
Got the short straw again, I see. Okay, fair enough.
The zoning bylaw application is to add distillery as a permitted use under the C3 service commercial zone at the subject property, which is 801 Fraser Street. The applicant is applying on behalf of Port City Spirits, and they wish to open a small-scale distillery with an accessory lounge tasting room. The distillery and tasting room lounge would be subject to Liquor and Cannabis Regulating Board for licensing, as well as meeting safety requirements under the BC Building and Fire Codes. The City Core Development Permit Area Guidelines would continue to apply at this property if any changes were made on the outside. This zoning change is just a textual amendment. It would fit with the other permitted uses under the existing zoning, which are largely service commercial use, which has some overlap with light industrial facilities and lends itself well to the inclusion of distillery, because it is both a retail service and a contained manufacturing development. Furthermore, this zone permits assembly halls, and these uses together may align with the proposed use. This is also aligned with the official community plan. There are currently no small-scale distilleries of this kind in Prince Rupert, so it offers an opportunity for economic diversification in the city core, which we wish to revitalize. And additionally, the success of a craft brewery in Prince Rupert, as well as the success of several small-scale distilleries in other cities across BC, suggests that this may be a good economic boost in the community. There's little likelihood of impacts on neighboring uses. The manufacturing is contained within the building. There are largely service commercial uses nearby, such as a construction company, a research laboratory, etc., so similar uses. Further afield, down the street, is the college and a dance studio, and then across the street is the Friendship House. So we do recommend that the rezoning application go to public notification to hear any concerns from the community. Finally, the building that they obtained used to be a U-Brew, so it's not significantly different from its previous use, and so there may be even less likelihood of significant impacts on neighboring properties. There are no cost or budget impacts to the city for approving this rezoning, and it is recommended that the council give first and second reading to the rezoning application and proceed to public hearing.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Moore?
I have a question which I think has a very obvious answer, but I think I need to ask it anyways. Why is the recommendation a site-specific addition of permitted use and not simply an addition of permitted uses to the entire C3 zoning designation?
Well, adding the distillery at the site specific, if we added it to the entire zone, it would mean any C3 zone in this whole community would be allowed to have a distillery, which I think because we just want it at that one place for now, that's why we're suggesting it's site specific. But the implications of just adding that to the zone would be that it is permitted in anywhere that C3 zone exists.
So, and effectively then, so any future applications for future distilleries would have to go through the same process.
Well, it depends what zone they're applying for. If they want to go in a zone that doesn't currently permit it, so there's two zones that currently permit distilleries. One is the C5 zone, which is marine commercial, and one is the MD1 zone, which is the Marina District. So if a distillery wants to go in there, they don't need any any rezoning. But if they need to go in any zone that doesn't permit a distillery, we can just add that as a text amendment.
Understood.
I believe. And
Yep. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Ady?
I was just going to add that I would assume that in the public hearing process, if there was a concern that doing it this way is a way of opening it up for one operation but closing the door to another, that objection would come out in the form of a comment in the public hearing. Because I don't think that's the intention at all, but I think that it would be possible to see it that way. It's just a comment.
Councillor Scott Mormon?
I think there's some opportunity in future proofing, just like you had mentioned. I think with production, especially high alcohol volume content, it's kind of the equivalent of rocket fuel in explosive levels. And having gone through some of this process and exploring a venture like this myself in the past, looking through some of the requirements, especially that they're not to be within X amount of feet or meters within a residence. So having adjacent uses, I think, and having this one-off case rather than a blanket of C3, and having that possibility in the future for future councils without the same kind of process to go through, especially I think this kind of closes a lot of the, not necessarily closes opportunity, but more so it's site specific, especially because of the usage and potential high volume and high flammable materials.
Councillor Cunningham?
The only, it's going to go to public hearing, so we'll hear from the neighbors, but are the people up on Borden Street going to be informed of this?
Yeah, so their notifications will go out to everywhere within 100 meters of the property, which includes the houses above, yeah. And for reference, there is a area that's zoned park behind it, and that's kind of a buffer between any residential and the existing property.
Yeah, my only concern is if they're going to have alarms and things like that, noises at night, things like that with residential right above it. Like it's been very successful to Wheelhouse, but that's down in an industrial site, and at night it can get a little loud down there at that. And so that would be my only concern, a distillery plus a lounge for that, especially with social services, but that's up to the people in the neighborhood.
Other comments? Okay, anyone want to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Scott Mormon, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, next, item C, recommendation that council introduce and give fourth and final readings to the City of Prince Rupert 2022 5-year financial plan, bylaw number 3494/2022. Moved by Councillor Scott Morvan, second by Councillor Niche. Any further discussion on the matter? Councillor Ady?
Just a question. I'm on page 4 where it talks about policy and with regard to permissive tax exemptions. And there are 4 items or 4 categories identified there. I'm curious about the 4th one, the Downtown Core Revitalization Tax Exemption Program, which came to existence in 2020. I'm just wondering if we have any information on how effective that's been, or what the kind of revenue outcome of that has been.
The downtown development revitalization tax exemption is not inclusive within the permissive tax exemption. It's under different legislation. We actually don't have, we have one application that has been received by council, and we don't have any information quite yet as to the non-market change that is going to be exempted. We won't know that for some time, probably into next year. We don't anticipate that there will actually be that much exempted because it was really just painting and some changes to the front door.
Councillor Cunningham.
A quick question just came to mind. Other than the port, how much other major industry do we have?
There are 2 industrial major industrial ratepayers, and that is AltaGas and Pembina that do not qualify for the Port Property Tax Act, if that's what you're referencing.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And recommendation that council give and introduce fourth and final reading to the 2022 property tax bylaw number 3495/2022. Moved by Councillor Anish, second by Councillor Scott Morvan. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, reports, questions, and inquiries from member council. Just wanted to make a note that and acknowledge that May 1st to 8th was Palliative Care Week, and that the Prince Rupert Hospice Society will be coming to our May 30th Committee of the Whole to make a presentation about care in Prince Rupert. Councillor Cunningham.
A couple things. One, this is National Nurse Week, and I think it's something we should make sure we recognize, considering what they've done for the last 2-3 years as frontline workers at the hospital and that. And it's I didn't even know it was Nurse Week till I looked it up, but I thought, wow, they deserve to have a week dedicated to themselves, considering everything they've done. And secondly, Councillor Addy asked when we were going to get the RCMP before council, so we could ask him some questions in that, and it's been months since then, and I don't see where it's relevant if we're waiting for a new OIC or not. Somebody's in charge of that detachment, and they should come in, because tourism's coming right now, and there's a lot of problems in the downtown area that are being brought to our attention. So I really think that we should have a chat with the RCMP.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In speaking with the incoming officer in charge, we let them know that this is a process that we'd like to see occur fairly regularly. I'm meeting with the new officer in charge on Friday, so we'll pass on that invitation and arrange for a fairly quick meeting with council at a upcoming council meeting, hopefully in June.
Excellent. Thank you. Other comments or reports?
I just want to acknowledge May 5th as a National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and Two-Spirited people as well. And I think that for us, it's just a piece that we want to pay tribute to, especially being at the end of the road on the Highway of Tears, many of which know as Highway 16. So I just wanted to pay special tribute to that. And also I know that my business partner Matt and some of his other family members are watching right now, so I'm going to wish him an early birthday because his birthday is tomorrow, so I'll just acknowledge him there. And I told him I'd put in an executive order tonight for him, and maybe we could sing him happy birthday.
Well, we won't sing him happy birthday, but we'll say happy birthday, buddy. Anything else?
Birthday request, yeah.
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Scott Morvan. All those in favor?